when we're doing this training today, because I'm going to cover basically kind of the three most important things to grow a long, sustainable business here. And then I'm going to cover the one today, which is really about stories. And so, and you guys all still got me here? You hear me? Somebody give me some, yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I can't see anybody now. So, okay,
Can you see me
let's
now?
get this thing started. Oh, I got you guys. I got you. We're back. We're back. Okay, so today we're going to talk about storytelling. I learned this a long time ago, and my brain doesn't work this way, y'all. So just so you know, my brain, I have to change the way I thought about it because my brain didn't work this way. But the three most important things, if you want to grow, and I want you to write this down, if you want to grow a long, sustainable business, improve it, back up. If you want to grow the long, sustainable business in anything, these are the three things that you're going to want to get better at. Okay. And I'm going to ask you to rate yourself a little bit. Number one, and I truly believe this to be number one, is you have to grow yourself. Number one thing, if you want to grow a long-term business, you must grow yourself, meaning you have to become more mentally aware of your actions, of your talk. It's called AQ and EQ, emotional quotient. So how many of you, and I want you to rate yourself out of a 1 to 10, I want you to rate yourself, how committed daily are you to working on your own mindset? Number one, 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being the highest. And how committed are you, or how would you rank yourself in your emotional reaction to things? Meaning yesterday we were on a bus ride and it didn't go as planned. And I'm in the bus with everybody that has not been working on their emotional reactions. And they're getting flustered and frustrated. And basically the trip was going to happen no matter what, but they were choosing to be frustrated versus choosing to let it go and enjoy the journey and look at the monkeys, right? So their EQ is relatively low, at least in that circumstance and situation, right? Where I was like, this is cool. Like I'm used to going to like these really exclusive places where this was like off the cuff. You didn't know what was going to be around the corner. So I was getting excited.
Back to 328, please.
I was excited about what was happening, right? So that's number one, working on your own mental acuity, your mental power. And I'm going to tell you that you are the first to lie to yourself of where you're really at. So sometimes you have to ask your family and friends for the truth. And be okay with what they say, because you never know. My wife's very open and honest about where I'm at mentally, emotionally. And then AQ is your adaptability. So that's number one, working on your own mindset. Number two, I truly believe storytelling is your secret to your long-term business and your long-term success. This is in building teams, and this is in recruiting and attracting new people. And then number three, it's building your ability to lead others or to guide others to strengthen 1 and 2. So leadership isn't about telling people what to do. It's about inspiring other people to get enough out of their own way to do. And I mean, when Samantha and I first really spent time together, she didn't like me at all. Sometimes she probably doesn't like me today. We butt heads sometimes. But the reality is my whole goal was to help her find her strengths and work on the first two things, right? That was really what my goal is as a leader. And and as you become stronger in the first two, what happens is you get greater at the other two, as long as you work on that third component. So, and we can break these down later in the future, but what I want to do is I want to focus on storytelling. And everybody here, just give me a show of hands, you want to grow a business with Prove It. Like, let me rephrase that. You love helping people. You want to help more people, but you really want to like financially have a tangible income that you can quantify and take forward in your life. Everybody here, right? So is anybody not? If you're not like that, that's okay. But I want to really get people in their head of what they really want. And to do that, we need to grow. So first thing, the number one thing is go to our more events, go to our Prove It events. It's always about personal growth, right? Number two, storytelling. They said something to me when I first started Prove It was stories sell and facts tell. So stories sell and facts tell. Have you ever heard that before? What makes Michael and Jesse Lee and Katie Rollins and Nick Martinez and all these people so good at this game, Samantha Rose, is they're world-class storytellers. They're always telling you a story they have an outcome. It's not like they're just telling to tell. They're telling a story to get you to think a certain way or to get you to react a certain way. Stories is everything in movies, everything in TV shows. Like, put down in your notes, what's your favorite TV show? What's your favorite movie? And you break down and dissect the story that they tell you in that movie. Maybe it's a woman, a single mom that went through this hardship and blah, 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 blah. And then they came out the other side to have success, right? And find true love, whatever it is, right? But there's always there's a story involved, and it's the story that pulls you in. And whoever tells the best stories gets the most people to pull into them. So why this is so important is that, number one, initially, it's a way to attract people to you. Number two, it's also a way to relate to your team, right? As you get bigger, right now, I'm less relatable sitting in Costa Rica by the pool doing the Zoom. I'm less relatable to a lot of you out there in some ways, because you're like, oh, it's easy for him to say he's by a pool in Costa Rica, right? I don't normally do this from a pool in Costa Rica. It just happens to be the time and day and everybody's in the pool right there. But at the same time, for some of you, this story inspires you to want what I have, right? So that story is constantly moving for your audience, all right? It's constantly moving for your audience. But the only thing you can truly do is be true to your story. So I'm going to break this down. I want everybody to do this work as exercise with me. Is I want you to start with the product. What is your product story? And if you can, put it in the chat. All right, number one. Number two, Bobby, I'm going to have you tell your product story for everybody, if you don't mind. She's like, really? Shit. All right, unmute. Tell me your product story, Bobby. We're going to work through this, y'all. I want to take some time and work through this with y'all because it's too important just to tell you what to do. I want you to actually do what we need to do.
Okay. Well, I haven't practiced like taking the medical stuff out of it. Before Prove It, I was really sick and very weak and scared, had a horrible diagnosis. And I found a friend on Facebook that was advertising Prove It and ketones and all the amazing things that they did for your health. And since I was afraid for my own health and my husband had just had a heart attack, I ordered him some ketones. And then on day 3, he was just like a different person. He wasn't going to bed at his normal bedtimes. He was staying up late playing with the kids. And I was like, if I just had an ounce of that energy. So I got back online and I ordered some more ketones. And same thing around day 3, day 4. My energy changed. Like I had strength to get myself up out of to walk across the living room, to start doing little household chores that I hadn't been able to do for over 2 years. And I immediately got back on, signed up to be a promoter, and haven't looked back. It's been 14 months now. So
awesome. So that was really good. You know, and it wasn't that significantly in compliance. The way you said it was really, really good. Now, you okay with me helping you fine tune that story? Can anybody else relate to Bobby's story? Is there some similarities to Bobby's story, right? So what we want to do is when you're telling your product story, and I want to say the product story because that's what's most easy for people to talk about. When we start talking about the opportunity story or a bigger story, people get stuck and they don't get as confident. You feel very confident in telling your story. You weren't wishy-washy, you were true, your heart was in it, you were really clear, you showed some vulnerabilities. So when you're doing your storytelling, the first thing you want to do is actually have a little bit of the emotions in there, which is important. The longer you do this, the easier it is to act like you were never, like if you were not well and you got well, like the person you're talking to is the person that's not well. And if you're like me with high energy all the time and I talk to a sick person, they instantaneously don't relate to me. Right? Like, cause I'm like I'm not relating to where they started from. I have to kind of go back to when I was sick to be like, oh my God, I remember back in the day when I got diagnosed with this stupid condition. I felt like crap. I didn't sleep at all. I was gaining weight. I was miserable. And I found this magical drink online. It's crazy. And I didn't believe it, to be honest. I didn't think it would even be true. I tried it and I go, wow, maybe I noticed a little difference. And then after a month, I was like, wow, I feel like me again. And since then, I've been able to do X, Y, Z, right? So you have to relate to the person you're talking to in the right way, if that makes sense. So if Bobby goes and tells that story to a professional athlete, probably not a lot of relatability. Now, if the professional athlete's sister is struggling, right, he might go, or she might go, oh my God, you got to talk to my sister. But then Bobby calls me up. He's like, how do I get the professional athlete? Well, I go, you can't tell your story to the professional athlete. You got to tell somebody else's story to the professional athlete. Does that make sense? You have to relate to that person based on it. Oh, I know this girl named Janet. She's 50 years old and she does like 50 push-ups and she's a badass. She uses performance. It's like crazy. You got to see her Facebook page or Instagram page. It's amazing, right? So you're using somebody else's story to tell that. So when you're telling your story, what you want to do is you want to build the shock and awe and pain of where you're at for whatever the problem is that you think they want to solve. So let's use this as an example. If you meet a mom, you have a mom with kids. What are the problems that they typically need to solve? Put that in the chat. You have a dad with kids. What are the problems they need to typically solve? Put that in the chat. I want you to put dad with kids in the chat. What's the problems? I want you to put in the chat, mom with kids, what's the problems? I want you to put in middle-aged women, what's the problem? Middle-aged men, what's the problem? 20-year-old men and women, what's their problems? What's their obstacles? What are the things? Let me pull up the chat here, see if I can. Okay. Mom with kids, tired all the time. All right. Busy schedule, energy, mood, lack of energy, work-life balance. Hero's journey. Yes, Liam, that is exactly right. I want you to think about this. So if you're new to this or you don't know what to say to people, what you're doing is overcoming their obstacle. Okay. Now this is a product. We're going to focus on product for a minute, and then we're going to go to the opportunity. So you're trying to overcome their obstacle. It's funny that nobody in here has put fat loss or overweight. Oh, one did. Gaining weight for decades, lower metabolism. Well, that's for the above the 40. When 90% of people come to prove it for fat loss, and nobody, I got to stop everything for a second. You all notice, look at the chat and notice how nobody put weight loss, but most people come for weight loss. Do you notice that? So can I just for fun, I want to ask, can anybody tell me why we didn't put weight loss down? Can anybody unmute and tell me? How many of you came for weight loss? Or it was one of your top 1 or 2 goals? Everybody, right? Nearly everybody, except Samantha and Rob, me, right? So I'm just curious, can somebody unmute and tell me, I want to know, why did you not put that in the chat? Why was that missed? Why was that just kind of put to the side?
I put that to the side. My mental clarity, I think, was the biggest hurdle I needed to get over before I started focusing on my weight loss. I needed to be able to change my whole outlook on life and my personal mindset in order for me to continue with my weight loss.
Right. So, but would you say that weight loss is still one of your top 1 or 2 reasons of why, or your obstacles that you were trying to overcome?
I wouldn't say it's a huge obstacle now. But
so how about
from the
this?
beginning, I would say that it is still a point.
When I say, what's one thing a mom or dad with kids are trying to overcome? What's an obstacle they're trying to overcome? Would it be okay to say that, stop gaining weight, or to try to lose weight, or find a diet that's sustainable that they can get healthy from? Would that be an obstacle that moms are dealing with? I know energy is a thing and focus and mood's a thing for sure. But would you all agree that that's probably a big, when 80 or to 90% of people come for weight loss, but we have 15, 20 people on a Zoom, and nobody put that down as the obstacle? Y'all see where I'm going here? The Zoom's changed. I'm changing stance a little bit on the Zoom. Y'all see where I'm going here? How many of you say this? Well, it's not about weight loss. It's about energy, focus, and mood. How many of you guys say that? Raise your hands. Come on, I want to hear it. Right? So many people say that, but yet the reason they come, if Lauren, I don't know if Lauren's on here. I was literally in a meeting with Lauren. She's speaking in front of 100 people, and she told her story. Well, her initial story was she gained some weight after her second baby, and she wanted to lean back out to where her fighting shape was, right? She lost 37 pounds. She told everything about her whole story in the room, except that part. Well, remember, you're relating to your audience. Where's your audience at? I stopped the whole meeting. I stopped everything, and I said, hey, everybody raise your hand why you're here. Who's here? Primary goal is to lose weight. everybody but 2 people in the room. So 98 people raised their hand, 2 people didn't. She told her story to the 2 people and not to the 98. Now, she could have told the story to all of them, right? If she just added the other component on. So I want to bring this in. It's not about weight loss or energy, but it's about you recognizing. Remember, the first part of the strength is you understanding what you're thinking, right? If it's like, now it's the same thing. If I don't want to go to somebody that's 400 pounds and assume that they want to lose weight, maybe they just want to sleep tonight. Maybe they just want energy, right? I don't want to just assume that one thing, but you're overcoming what are their obstacles? What are their things? You have to take yourself out of it a little bit when you're starting to look at that person. Like, oh, what are their challenges? Okay, well, their challenge right now, like right now, the challenge in this hotel right now is by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everybody's going to be a zombie, right? They're going to have no energy and tired. That's the problem in the afternoon. They're all having fun right now, right? But they're all going to crash later. So I'm going to talk about energy in the afternoon, right? Because that's going to solve that problem for everybody here at this resort. I'm not going to talk about weight loss because everybody's at a resort all inclusive eating shit. So I'm not going to bring that up, right? That's going to be counterintuitive to the environment that I'm in, right? So I want to bring that into, I'm sorry that got me sidetracked. I was just so surprised that wasn't one of the top things that should have been talked about. And so remember, your goal is to attract people to you, and you're the most qualified to attract people that were who you used to be. Rob and I are more qualified to attract trainers and coaches and health professionals to prove it, mostly for the opportunity and a tool to help people become compliant, their clients more compliant, for fat loss, for energy, for performance, right? For their goals. Does that make sense? So that's what our story is. And that's who, if we're talking to trainers, that's how we're going to talk to trainers. Does that make sense? So Bobby, you did a great job on your story. The only thing I'm going to ask you to do on your story when you're telling it is start thinking more about the person you're talking to than just yourself. So if you're talking to somebody that doesn't have a heart attack or isn't dealing with somebody with a heart attack, you can just as easily substitute words in like fatigued, tired all the time, couldn't get off the couch, right? Like just felt like I honestly, I was so saddened for my husband. I felt like I was losing him. He had no life left. He just didn't move very much. And I was going to do anything to help him live better. And I literally found somebody on Facebook, of all things. I found somebody on Facebook selling this crazy product. And I'm like, I'll try anything to help him have a life back. So we bought it. I had him try it, and holy cow, he started playing with the kids. Like, I haven't seen him do that in 3 years. He started playing with the kids. Like, I'm like, if he gets that, what would happen if I tried it? I've been now on this stuff for 14 months, and I can tell you, my energy's up. I sleep better. I've lost 70 pounds, and holy cow, I feel like I'm me again. And now I want to help other people that were like me. So you see how the story was told in a way that could relate to any mom out there that heard that has a husband that's struggling, would be like, oh my God, like, what is it? How can I get him on it? Like, she might even forget about herself because you cared more about your husband's story than your own initially, right? How many moms out there care about their husband or their kids, and they'll do anything to try to help them, even though their husbands won't listen? True that, right, ladies? So I want you to think about, really quick, I'm going to pause for a second. Samantha, Cameron, Rob, Ethan, Liz, anybody have anything they want to add to that? Either the fat loss piece, like how to tie that in a better way, or a way to tell your story to relate to the person. But I think the most important thing is you have to, when you're telling your story, think about the other person and how your story can move them into asking more questions and wondering more what you're doing rather than telling them everything about you. Does that make sense? And that takes practice, y'all. Everybody I mentioned earlier is world-class at it. So Cameron?
Hey, hi. So here's what I will say to that is, do y'all ever feel like your story has so many levels and layers that you're like, I don't really know what part of it to say? Well, that's normal. And the beauty in that, instead of like thinking, oh, well, like that can paralyze us, but think about it like this. The more broad your story is, I guess you could say, the more you're going to be able to help people, the more people you're going to be able to help, because whoever that is, I'll give you an example. I was in South Carolina with Shannon, one of the girls on the team, and we were doing a table, and somebody came up to the table and Shannon started to share her story. And I think what it was is the lady was like retired. She was probably like in her 60s. And Shannon was sharing her story, and she was talking about how she was a homeschool mom and she works 3 State Farm offices and all this stuff. And when the lady went away, I said, Shannon, what you want to focus on right then is what's going to connect with that woman. Like 40 years ago, that may have connected to her as a busy mom and whatever, but at this stage, she's at a whole different point in her life, and you want to focus on the parts of your story that can help her. Does that make sense? So I think just keeping that in mind and thinking, right, Lynn? Yes. So just remember, what is that person going to connect to? That also helps us not to like overshare. We can just trim the fat and make sure to connect with them right out of the gate. So that's what I'd say. And Dustin, that was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you look at Rutherford when he started, like all he ever did is carried one photo around, and he just told the one story to anybody that was overweight. Like he targeted who he was talking to, and he showed. Kate, I know Kate's in the middle of a meeting right now, but it's like she's blasting the same photo she took 7 years ago or 6 years ago. She just replays that thing over and over and over again to her new audience, right? So keep this in mind. And what happens with storytelling, if you guys have ever been to a More event, if you ever hear it just said Magic Mike on the call, Cameron. I don't know if you heard that. Somebody just said Magic Mike on the microphone over here. Magic Mike, Cameron's friend. Anyway, wasn't she on your team? Was that somebody else's team? Anyway, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. But the thing was is if you're on social media or out in town, you're telling the same story to new people, not the new story to the same people. So you master the mundane. Jim Rohn said this, if you want to be great at this industry, master the mundane. It's telling the same story to new people. It's not telling the new story to new people. Now, at the same time, I want you to create new stories, right? Liz is in a different phase of her life right now. She's talking about being fit in her 50s rather than maybe so she's creating a new story because she can relate to a new audience, but she can also still relate to her original audience, right? People that did a ketogenic diet, were struggling, couldn't maintain it, wanted to get healthy, and ketones came into her life. She can relate to that audience, but now she can commit to a different audience. So you want to write that down. You're telling the same story to new people. There's a gentleman I won't talk about. I talk about him all the time, but I don't like the guy. Flat out, there's very few people in the world I don't like. And then I realized he's a genius in marketing. And I absolutely despise him as a person, just don't like the guy. Some of you may know who he is. He lost 100 pounds doing keto, 35 years ago, and he's been selling that 100-pound loss story for 35 years, can fill cruise ships of people, and he gained all the weight back within the first 2 years of it all. But he still could sell that same story. And I was like, this guy's a genius. After I got done hating him because I realized it was about me, not about him, I'm like, he's a genius. What is he doing? He's telling the story that he started with. Even though he's gained all the weight back, that story still sold. So I want everybody on here to really take this week, the next 7 days, and master their story. And if it's just one thing, start with one. If you can become more broad in general, become more broad in general. But I want you to think about this. When you're going through the week, I want you to look at the person. I don't care if it's somebody on TV. Okay, how would I talk to them? What story would I tell them? If it's somebody at the mall, you see them, what story would I tell them? If it's somebody in the restroom, what story would I tell them? And if you don't know, then remember, you might have to tell somebody else's story. You might tell John Smay's story. So being part of the perfect community is about learning other people's stories. Bobby, I can tell your story to somebody else because I don't have your story, right? So if I meet a mom that has a husband that's not doing well, I can instantaneously think, oh my God, I was on a Zoom earlier with the lady and her husband I can just tell your story to the lady, right? In a general way. And that creates conversation. And then from there, I can create relationships that can move them into action. So are we all tracking this? So your challenge right now is to tell your story to 10 people, either into yourself, write it down, and then verbalize it. I'm a big fan of once you tell your story, tell it. Like, I don't care if you just do a voice memo and voice memo yourself or voice memo your team leader, or if you're in a group chat and tell your story, but you don't want to tell it once. You got to tell it at least 10 times. Now, I'm not telling you to tell your whole story. I'm telling you to tell the story to that person. I'm talking to a mom that's 36 years old with 4 kids that homeschool. This is what I would say. And then tell your story. And remember, your outcome is to create conversation and to create relationship. That's the outcome. Not to, your big outcome is to sell them ketones and bring them onto your team, right? But your initial outcome is just to create a conversation. I hope you're all getting what I'm putting down here. Cool. Okay, transition. I'm gonna walk away here from a little group. Transition quick. Opportunity. Right now, we're moving towards the opportunity and talking about the opportunity. But would you all agree that you can talk about the product easier than you can talk about the opportunity? Who here feels more confident in talking about the opportunity than the product? Except Lynn. Bobby, you feel more confident about the opportunity? No, she's okay. I just didn't make sure. Does anybody feel more confident in talking about the opportunity than the product? Unmute if you raise your hand because I can't see anybody. It's pretty bright out here. So, how do we get better at talking about the opportunity? Anybody want to say it? Anybody got a guess? How do we get better at talking about the opportunity? And I don't even like the word opportunity. I mean, I don't dislike the word. I feel like the word opportunity doesn't mean a lot to most people. Right? Who's a non-business related person who's has no business relationship, like doesn't think business at all, just business. And if I say you're a business owner, you kind of get stressed out. Anybody? You guys are all amazing. Nobody. Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and cover that part. So when we get better at talking about the opportunity is to start talking about the opportunity. I was in a chat with Kate and Cameron and Luis earlier, and I was talking about what we're shifting to. And it was funny because Kate, who actually is easy talking about the opportunity, she kept thinking she needed something else. I go, what you have to realize is where are we at and prove it. Where are you all at on the Zoom right now is that you're more comfortable talking about the product than the business. I go, we can throw out the perfect business plan, the perfect opportunity, the financial abundance, everything that's going to work perfectly. And if you're not confident in talking about it, it's not going to matter, right? So we have to get you more comfortable. So I'm going to challenge you and this is going to be my business storytelling opportunity. Same thing applies, is this. Who are you talking to? If Bobby is talking to Coach Rob DeBoer about fitness and opportunity, right? Now I'm going to say this is a disclaimer. You cannot say the wrong thing to the right person or the right thing to the wrong person. So just know that. If the person's not interested, Michael talked to me and I was interested. I was the right person. Didn't matter what he said. That makes sense. It wasn't what he said. I was ready to listen to whatever I could to change my life, right? So I was the right person. But I do want to be clear here. If you are talking to somebody that's not you, you got to think, what does that person need? And if you don't know, then maybe you just start a different conversation with them. You try to create relationships. If you run into Rob DeBoer and you're like, I don't know how to talk to a trainer about business. If you don't know how to do that, you might ask him, hey dude, like, how did you get so muscular? What's 2 tips that you could give me? Like, if I'm at the pool here and I see a buff dude and I'm not a buff dude. And I'm like, dude, like, what do you do? Like, how do you get so big? How do you get so ripped? Oh my God, that's amazing. Oh, I like to bench press. I like to do all this other stuff. I like powerlifting, whatever they say. I'm actually a trainer. Oh my God, do you mind if I follow you online? I would love to get some of your tips. This is amazing. If you don't know what to say to them, maybe you don't say anything, but you create a connection in a relationship. Does this make sense? Now that gets a little creepy for dudes to women. Let's just be honest. Let's be honest. If you're a dude on here trying to do that to a bunch of women, it can get a little weird. Navigate it the best you can. Okay. This is where I throw my wife into the mix. I have to. Oh my God, you should talk to my wife. So I make it about my wife, not about me when I'm talking to women, because I don't want them thinking that all I want to do is pick them up. Because that happens. You ladies, you get what I'm talking about, right? So you're taking the weirdness out of there. But I want to give you permission not to talk about the opportunity. I want to give you permission just to create a relationship. You're thinking 2 steps ahead. Because guess what? When you see Coach Rob DeBoer on Facebook and you're like, oh my God, dude, you're a stud. Like, you must be making tons of money doing what you're doing. You must be crushing it. Well, no, actually, I need some more clients. Oh, really? Oh my God, I have a video that you need to see. The top 10 excuses why trainers need to check this out. I actually partnered with a few trainers that have been teaching me how they grow their business online. Does this make sense? So now you're using somebody else's story to validate and you're pulling them in and you connect them to me. Make sense? Okay, that's giving you permission not to talk about the opportunity. Giving you permission to think, I want them. I need to create a relationship with them. I got to find a way to communicate with them. And then I'm going to find a way to connect with them maybe in a month from now or 6 months from now. You write them on a sheet of paper and they're in your hot list. Your hot list is your list of people that you want to get. Samantha Rose is world class at this, right, Samantha? She meets somebody and she's like, I'm going to get them someday. She doesn't necessarily sell them that day. She might be a long play and she gets them in 3 or 4 months. True or true, Samantha? I don't know if she's still on. Like Cameron will contest. She's really good at that because she's like, I want that person. I'm not sure how I'm going to get them quite yet, but I can create a relationship with them, and then maybe we'll find a way that we can work together. She's so good at that. But does that make you feel better, guys, if you can not have to try to sell anybody? It kind of gives you permission to just start the relationship, start the building blocks, right? Anna Mae, that person that you maybe recruited might become the hotel owner that you do your next event at and never join our business, right? Never join, but now you have a venue that you can do your next event at, and you got the really cool relationship, right? It might turn into something that you needed anyway in your life. You attract them into your life for a reason. Cool. So telling your business story is the same components. You want to tell people where you're at. Remember, you are one chapter ahead of anybody else. You're most qualified to teach the person you used to be. And if you're a promoter and prove it, you're different than you were when you started. Cameron is in a different place. Janet is a different place now than they were 6 years ago, right? So they have a different form of telling their story, but Anna Mae is relatively new. Maybe Anna Mae has not made a ton of money yet. She has not created financial freedom yet. She has not created a sustained revenue stream yet. So how can she present her story to somebody? It's simple. Who are you, or who were you 2 months ago, Anna Mae? You mind if you unmute? Anna Mae has a cool story. So tell me who you were 2 months ago or 3 months ago.
I was stuck in a rut and kind of given up on my weight loss success. Just settling in for everyday life.
Cool. And tell me about your business, like your financial situation. Tell me about how you were financially and why you decided to take a step towards this business.
Financially, it was paycheck to paycheck because we were a single income. And I decided to go in. Honestly, I decided to go in because I loved the product after I tried it, and I was like, what's it gonna hurt? If I make some money with it.
How many kids do you have?
I have 7.
7 kids. When you lay in bed at night, were you more stressed about your financial situation or more stressed about your health situation?
I was more stressed about finances.
All right. When you laid in bed and you thought about winning the lottery, what's the thing you would do first?
Make sure that my family had a secure future.
Okay. Since Prove It, do you think more about how to create a secured future for your family or less?
I would say probably less.
No, you think more about how to do it. Not saying, does that make sense? You think more about that there's a way to do it, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then last question is, have you made any money in Prove It?
I have.
Perfect. Have you gotten any product for free or reduced price?
Yes.
And what pack did you buy to get started?
I started, I think, with the Better Bundle.
The Better Bundle. Awesome.
Yes.
So the reason why I wanted to bring this up is how many people can relate to Anna Mae's story? You have not created a financial abundance yet from Prove It. You haven't hit a financial home run yet, right? It's coming yet. Hasn't happened yet. But you see, you're a very different person than you were when you started. Before Prove It, you didn't know where the next money was going to come from. You're living you have 7 kids living paycheck to paycheck. You were struggling with your health. You're struggling with your weight. But really you laid in bed at night financially just worried. That worry is not going to help my health. It wasn't helping my body. It was causing me to stress eat. And I thought, well, if I found a product that could help me, and this product, man, holy cow, I felt this. I'm like, I don't have any other options to make extra money. So why not take advantage of a good product and an opportunity that I don't have otherwise and do something about it? Since I started Prove It, yes, I've made some money. And tell them, I made $500. You wouldn't do this publicly, but privately. I made this amount. I got some free product. I'm working towards a car bonus, right? But you know what the most important thing is I finally have hope and know that I have a direction that I can actually create extra money for my family. Because you know what? I really want to take all my kids to Disney World someday. And so we're planning that trip and we're going to work so we can do that. So you see, could you relate to all that story I just said?
Yes.
You can tell that one story to a million moms out there, and it'll never end. And nothing was incompliant. I was just telling you from my heart what I was and where I'm going, and how you have more optimism now than you did before, because you have a team, you have people around you that believe in you, and you have a product that you can stand behind. At minimum, you got a new customer. At maximum, you got a new customer that's going to look into, or a promoter, and then maybe a customer that's looking at becoming a promoter. And that's just from your heart. It's just what your story is, but you have to practice that so much that it just comes out of you. Right? So like John and Michelle Smay, they have a very different story. They were slaves to a gym. They lived in Canada. They was becoming a prison. They were restricting them on everything they were doing. They were looking for freedom. They wanted to get out of the roots of that life. So they went and looked at investments down in Mexico, doing some real estate in Mexico, but also could have a business that they could work from anywhere in the world and create an extra income stream so that they could enjoy travel, enjoy the world, and also have take off the restrictions of the life that was being, put on them or whatever. Right? And now they're looking forward to helping other people do the same thing. So like, it's just another way to tell the story, correct? Is this helpful? Cameron, anything you want to fill in on that?
I would love to say something really quick. Okay. So as Anna Mae was talking, and then like right before that, when you were talking about something, oh my gosh, hold on, let me find my train of thought again. So we were talking about having the business conversation, and I was listening to you talk, and like, I always think about like me when I first started, and like me at different phases in it, and actually like thinking about who am I going to talk to about the business? Oh my gosh, like who is it? Like you start to just think like that, right? But I want to remind y'all that really what it comes down to is just having more conversations and attracting more people, because it doesn't have to be about, oh, I'm going to talk to you about the business. Oh, I'm going to talk to you about ketones. It's the same thing. Right? Like it's the same thing. It's just about making sure that people know that there's an opportunity, because guess what? They're either going to be like, oh, heck yeah, if I'm using something and there's a business attached, I'm in. Or they're going to be like, nope, don't ever ask me to sell it. Or they're going to be like, if it works good, I'll tell everybody. I feel like those are like the three categories. Don't y'all think? Like that's kind of like the general thing, right? So it's our job to make sure that they know there's an opportunity there. And then when we reverse engineer that and we go, well, how am I going to talk to more people? Listen, just showing up on your social media, and it's not about having a social media business. Your social media is that's a place where you can be seen. That's all it is, right? You can take it farther than that. You can build a business there. Yes, yes, yes. But ultimately, it's to make sure that the people who aren't going to see you normally just sitting in your house or in your office or wherever, they're now going to see you, right? They're going to see you online. So to me, the easiest way to do that is by showing up more on social. Now, that's the easiest way, right? But it doesn't mean it's easy to do, because it takes intention, it takes practice, it takes building that muscle. And something that I've personally been working on, and I'm already seeing the change, and I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I stop this? Is making sure that I am showing up there every day. Plan it out, take the time and kind of think about what your content's going to be, whether you pull some stuff and memes and quotes and you write a couple things out or whatever it is. But I'm just here to remind you that, like, literally just from me for the last 5 or 6 or 7 days, everything is up. Conversations are up, group requests are up, my stories are up. Everything, my little analytics or whatever, more people are seeing my stuff. And the other thing is showing up in our stories. And I'm saying this to myself too. Just reminding ourselves, like, be intentional about taking the time to prop the phone up and do the morning mix up and show your cute little cat or dog sitting there or whatever it is. And then I'll tell you one more thing and then I'll shut up. But something that really helps me too, bless you, is at the end of the day, like last night, I sat there and I was like, dang, like I slacked off on my stories. Crap, I got to get my stories up. got my post up, got my video up, but I didn't do stories. I just sat and went through and grabbed a couple things and took a moment and attached, like I shared a Ed Milet podcast, and I took the time to attach the link there to it. And I, did my little mix up, and I did my little, this is what I made the kids for lunch. If you don't find that you can get it done all throughout the day, take 10 minutes, snap the photos throughout the day, and then at night, take a few minutes and put it on your story. Because from what everybody says, I know somebody in the Bahamas, a couple of the girls were like, man, I'm building my whole business through my story. Like, they're like, I'm doing it all. I'm selling my travel packs through my story. I'm getting new promoters through my story. So I don't say any of that to like put a crazy pressure about social media or stress you guys out. I just want to remind you that if you can just start doing it, it will bring more people, more conversations, and as a result of that, more customers and more promoters.
Awesome, Cameron. I appreciate that. And I think, you know, I've been saying this for a few years now. The person that have the greatest success in it is the person that can blend the social media with the belly or the life side of it. And so I'll give you an example. I put up a post the other day, and what I've learned is that I'm not world-class yet on bringing people through social media. I'm not. But what I'm good at is I post on social media, and then my people in my community, in my town that I see at school or wherever at the grocery store, they then come and talk to me about it person to person. They don't respond. I had a guy, I did a post the other day. He is the medical director for the entire new hospital system of our town. And I actually know him. I met him like 25 years ago. He moved to the same town I did. I put in a post, and he privately texted me. And he goes, dude, we got to sit down and talk. What do you like? I want to know more about what's going on. The guy literally opens hospitals, and he's like, what are you like? We got to talk more about what you're doing. So true story. I did a post. He sent me my own post, just so you know, he screenshot it and sent it to me. And then he did it via text. He didn't respond to my post, just so you all know. But it just made me realize that they got to go together, right? So what Cameron, you're saying is so super, super important. So we're going to wrap this up, y'all. But this is your challenge, is the only way you're going to get good at talking about ketones is to learn how to tell your story. The only way you're going to get good at bringing on promoters is to learn how to tell your story. And the more you get good at telling your story, the more that you will get comfortable sharing it with more people. So we have to practice. So my challenge to all of you is 10 and 10 product stories, 10. And you know what's funny is I'm just going to call you all out on this. Every single time that I do this challenge, only like 2 people do it. And it's funny, people just don't do it. So please do this exercise. Tell your product story and tell your business story 10 times. But I want you to remember, you're telling it to a specific person, okay? And then Cameron touched on something that's really, really important. I said the top 3 things that you need to master this business is number 1, self-development or self-improvement. Number 2 is how to tell your story. And number 3 is how do you get other people to do the other 2. There is one component that I didn't overemphasize that I think is important, is that you have to be in front of people. You have to find new people to talk to. So using social media, and that's where, you know, if you're into social media, there's world-class social media trainers who prove it. Or if it's getting out in front of people like Lynn and Norma and people that like to do booths and people like to get out in front of parks and get out in front of everyday people, you have to be in front of new people to tell your story to. So if you're on social media and you're not trying to build your audience, well, then you're telling your story, or you're going to be telling your story to the same people, and that won't work. You have to grow your audience also. So that should be also one of the top 3 things that you should do to build this success in this industry. But then again, you talk to the right 2 or 3 people, your life can change forever. Because if you don't tell your story or you don't get a conversation, you'll never know where it'll go. So it is your job and you're responsible to do that. So any questions before I hop off? Truly appreciate you guys today. Forgive me for doing this from the pool side. I don't mind it so much, but I know it is what it is. So anybody have any questions before we hop off? All right, story time. Let's hear them. And if you really want to be bold, find 10 customers or 10 prospects and say, hey, do you mind if I share my story with you? I need to practice this. I'm not that great at it. Do you mind if I share it with you? Go tell your story to 10 or 20 people. Does that make sense? See what will happen. See what happens if you go to 10 family members and say, do you mind if I tell my story to you? Voice memo your story. What do you think of this one? And tell the story as if you're telling it to them based on who they are, not based on who you are. Does that make sense? And please send me some feedback on these. I would really like to hear from you all. You guys have an amazing Thursday. We do have a lot of things. The Dollar Keto Club's coming. We have a guest call tonight. We have a special host tonight's call. She is one of the coolest people in the world. She is an amazing rock star. And please, everybody get on and invite tonight's call because I want you to support her. Her name is Miss Cameron Moss. We'll be leading the call tonight. Special requests by the leadership of Prove It. So it's pretty cool. And so y'all support her tonight. And then we are thinking about doing a private team guest call on Sunday night. So stay tuned to that. So we'll keep you posted on everything. Cheers, y'all. Have an amazing day. And peace. I'm out of here. Oh, and don't forget about Nashville.